All right, hello. How's everybody doing? Good. All right, let's have a little fun, huh? All right, help my website was hacked. Before you say, well, my website's never been hacked, let's talk about that a little bit. This is going to be in 3 quick parts. First of all, I'm going to tell you about what happened to somebody, what we did about it, and how you can avoid this from happening to you. Does that sound okay? All right, first of all, what happened? I put the Blues logo here because this is what we say every year around December or so. If you're a Blues fan, what happened, right? I don't know what happened. We were going so good there for a while, right? That's what happened. All right, so what happened? My buddy Steve and I were having breakfast one day. This is Steve and I and a picture of our breakfast. We were having breakfast and we were talking about some different things. Steve's in branding, marketing, things of that sort. And he said, I really want to get a little bit more into some of the branding and that kind of stuff. And I said, oh, I know who we need to talk to or who you need to hook up with is Cynthia Carell, right? She's the communication architect. She's awesome at that kind of stuff. We need to hook you guys up, right? So I said, well, let's go look her up. So I went to the Googles and I typed in Cynthia Carell, and this is what came up. Your website may be hacked. And then apparently CynthiaCarell.com was selling 3 packs of original Rise thongs in white. I said, well, I don't think Cynthia's selling those, but I'll try the checkout process anyway. Right? Why not, right? So, of course, next thing, what did we do about it? Once again, this is me. So I shoot an email off to Cynthia when I get back from my breakfast. Hey, Cynthia, I was having breakfast with Steve. Noticed your website was hacked. It's a little bit crazy, but you might want to get it checked out. Here's an article I wrote about it that might be able to help, right? You like that? And Cynthia's so smart that a day later she emailed me back and said, I'd like to hire you to help me fix this. She's so smart. I said, it was great that I went in and hacked her site and then set this all up. It was perfect. Right? Yeah, job security. This is easy. It was easy. All right, so let's talk about it. Cynthia's on a platform called WordPress. Has anybody heard of WordPress? Okay, everybody, right? Most small businesses are running on WordPress. And that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today, but it works. This same thing works for all CMS systems, Magento, e-commerce, anything like that you're on. Same premise goes into play for that. The way that a website works quickly is there's 2 parts. There's all the files that create the website templates or whatever, the website itself, and then there's the database. And that's where all the important information is shared or stored, So when you pull up a website, even though it looks all kinds of pretty, there's a file or probably 100 that created this one page. At the same time, it pulled the database. It said, what is the title? What goes in the navigation? Those are all queries to the database back and forth. One website generation of a page could be 10, 20, 100 queries to the database. It's crazy, right? So the other thing that we have in our website is a theme. Everybody's running a theme or a design or a template of some sort to make it look pretty. That's another component that we've added into the system. At the same time, we've also added in a couple plugins. Has anybody heard of plugins? Apps, plugins, whatever you want to call it. And in WordPress, these are some of the most popular ones. Yoast is very popular, WooCommerce if you run an e-commerce site, things of that sort. So these are all bolted on. These are all, by the way, for the most part, third-party apps that are running on your website. WordPress didn't write them. Somebody else wrote them to work with WordPress, okay? So we've got a lot of leaks possible already just from building the site, right? So we've got all these pieces built together into a website. Now, what happens is WordPress comes out and says, hey, we have a new version, all right? So, we need to update the version. We need to keep that up to date. If you don't, you're liable to be hacked. So in this example, Cynthia had 19 updates that needed to be done on the WordPress site, 6 on the theme. Oh, and all the plugins needed updates too, right? They were all way behind as well. So what started out as a simple 19 click thing update to update that suddenly turned into 41, right? And I put Cynthia. But I'm picking on Cynthia maybe today, but in reality, I'm probably picking on about 85% of you in here that don't keep your site up to date. Are we on track? Does that make sense? Right? All right, here was Cynthia's backup plan. Help, help. No backups. I love you, Cynthia. And, okay, who else's backup plan is this? Go ahead. Yeah, all right. Tip number 1, this is an easy one, back your website up. It's just that easy. There's plugins to do it, and I'll talk about those in a minute. So what happened with Cynthia is she got an email around the same time from Google Search Console, which used to be called Webmaster Tools. And they said, hey, we've noticed all this harmful content on your site. We're basically going to take you out of Google. We're going to de-index you until you get these things fixed. So they had a list of all the things that she needed to fix, all the things that I needed to go in and fix, do all these different updates. I had the 41 updates on her website. I wanted to run a backup first. So what I did is I jumped onto Bluehost, who is her hosting company, and jumped on their chat and said, hey, we need to get this site fixed. They gave me back a list of files that needed to be deleted because the hackers injected those files in extra. Okay? So I had to go through, clean up all those files, jump back on the chat with Bluehost and say, hey, all those files are gone. If you try to get to them now, you get a 404, which is a page not found error, which you guys are probably familiar with. So all those files are gone. So I think it's fixed. Maybe, right? It should be, for the most part. Everything's up to date. Everything's ran. Everything's backed up. And when I did these tests, everything seemed to be okay. And sure enough, Bluehost came back and said, yep, it looks good. So then we had to go pray to the Google gods. Right? Nobody has a direct connection to them that I know of. So I had to fly out to California, and all on Cynthia's dime, so it was fine. Right. Pray to the Google gods to let us back in. So let's talk about how we can avoid this, and then we'll talk about what Google ended up doing, okay? First of all, I've already mentioned it. Run backups on your site. Whether you're on WordPress, Magento, Drupal, any of these systems, don't just assume that your hosting company is backing your website up on a regular basis. It's very likely that they're running maybe a weekly backup, but more likely a monthly backup. And more likely also they're just running backups of the changes that you made since the last time you made changes. Okay? So you need something more consistent. There's a lot of plugins out there specifically for this. For WordPress, there's Backup Buddy, Updraft are two very popular ones, VaultPress, BackWP Up, which is kind of hard to say. They could have came up with a better name. But nonetheless, these systems will automatically back up your site. They'll dump it to your server. I would actually recommend paying for one of the pro versions, which might be $50, $60 a year. But then what you can do is you can back your site up to something like Dropbox or Amazon Cloud or something like that. So if the server goes down, you have an external backup that you can just go to another hosting company or whatever and say, hey, put my site back up. Nice and easy, quick. These run backups on the files and also on the entire database. Okay? If you log into the back end of your website, this is the kind of stuff you see specifically for WordPress. The new version is available. Please update now. There's also these updates that show up over here sometimes. Also, the plugins will have something like that around there that says you have 10 plugin updates that need to be done. All of those need to be done. Tom and I had a conversation about this a while back, that it needs to be done daily, weekly at the least. Daily is best, but who's going to be able to do that every day, right? But you need to make sure these sites are kept up to date and back up often. Also, your theme. So the theme is another piece that's written by typically a third party. So those come out with updates from time to time. And if your theme is not coming out with updates from time to time, you may have an abandoned theme or something that's not any longer supported. So you need to make sure you keep that in mind. Make sure that you are getting updates, let's say 3 or 4 times a year from your theme. Okay, so those will show up down here under the updates as well, that your theme has a new version, needs to be updated. Plugins, I've kind of already mentioned. In WordPress, each of these plugins show up individually. There's a new version of this thing. Click here to update it. You click it, it takes 20 seconds, and it's updated. You can also check the select all box and then just hit update all, and that'll update them all. The other thing I'd say about this is after you run some of these updates, make sure your website's still working. Okay? Because sometimes these things break websites, but you already ran a backup, so you're fine, right? That'd be fine too. There is a lot of stuff to do to make sure that this is all up to date. So thanks for asking, Bill. So we do have a service that does this weekly. We run all the back updates on the site. We update everything, dump it all to an Amazon S3 account so everybody has their backups. We help you with the hacking, all that kind of stuff. If that happens to you, we'll clean it all up for you. Mason and I, somebody mentioned Mason earlier today, Mason Dukacek. Mason and I wrote a book about a year and a half ago called Defeating an Internet Boogeyman. I've got some copies. If anybody wants one today, I'll give it to you free. About all the different things that could happen to you. And let's have some questions. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I really thought on my website there's a place where you can check automatically update WordPress.
Yep.
That obviously doesn't cover.
That does. So there is an option in WordPress to automatically update to the newest version. Typically, you'll get an email afterwards saying your website was updated to the latest version. That's good for the website core files, the WordPress itself, but that does not include plugins, themes, third-party stuff that you've added on. Yep. Steve? Yes. Yes, you are. So if you keep all your plugins up to date, keep everything up to date, you know it's good, you know it's clear, then run another backup, so that you don't revert back to one that you've already knew was corrupted. Andy?
Wait. We want to hear you.
You think? How many copies of the backup? How many generations of the backup do you keep?
So it depends on how often you update your website. If, like most business owners, it's a brochure type site, so you're updating it a couple times a year, then I would run weekly backups off-site just to keep them, and then I'd keep a month or two's worth. Probably is good. The nice thing about something like Amazon S3, which is Dropbox or some sort of cloud service, is there's usually no limit on space, so you can keep lots of copies if you need to. Tom?
I'm the guy who was talking about how frequently to update a website. Yeah. So this is a tip more than a question. The decision on how frequently to back up your website depends on what you're doing on your website. If you're an e-commerce site and you're running transactions, if you're constantly updating and putting new stuff up on your site, if there's purchase data, if there's sign-up data that's frequently coming in, you want to back up your site daily.
Yeah.
And if it's the same content week after week after week, a weekly update is fine.
Yep. Yeah, I know when we ran Cynthia, she lost my order for my thongs. I never got them. Josh? I never got them. I don't know.
Well, if you receive a Google robot filling out a form a form submission, is that a sign of a hack?
It's very possible. That's one way that they can get into your site. An easy way to fix that is to add a CAPTCHA, CAPTCHA, to a form. And Google actually has a free CAPTCHA service that you can use. But yeah, if you start getting a bunch of weird stuff, I definitely add something to that to keep those to a minimum. And if you continue to get them, I would even contact your hosting company and ask them to block that particular IP address. Okay, lastly, just wanted to mention what happened to Cynthia. So after we prayed to the Google gods, we had to submit what's called a reconsideration request. And finally, we got the email saying it was approved, but what did it take? 5 weeks? Yeah. So they're not fast. So by the time we discovered it, and I don't know how long it was hacked prior to well, I do because I did it, right? But however long it was before that to the time that we discovered it, fixed it, submitted the re-inclusion request, probably about 5 to 6 weeks. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Will.